Okay, so tonight's reading selection will come from Perfect Brilliant Stillness by David Carse. And for those of you who are not familiar with him, he is a Vermont farmer slash carpenter slash building contractor who got interested in things spiritual and found himself on a retreat deep in the Amazon jungle, where he had a near-death experience that pushed him past the gateless gate into a transcendence, which he then proceeded to write about in this book. And the interesting thing is that this is all he wrote. He is not a teacher. He went back to being, as far as everyone knows, a carpenter in Vermont and does not take phone calls, so to speak. So he went back to his everyday life, and this was the contribution that he gave us. And I'm going to read a chapter from the book. And the title of the chapter is An Impossible Wait. The entire difficulty could be summed up like this. The human object has bitten off more than it can chew. It's taken on more than it is capable of. Armed with just enough of the consciousness flowing through it to facilitate a function it calls thought, the human being believes his or herself to be a separate, independent being, autonomous in itself, having the responsibility of freedom and choice in its decisions and actions. But you see, it isn't. The so-called human being is only an object in consciousness. However much it believes itself to be an independent, conscious being, however much it attempts to seize the role of subject, it's nevertheless an object in the display of consciousness. How can an object in the play of consciousness, with the entire limited capacity of an object, a dream character, a character in a movie, not be completely overwhelmed if it attempts to take on the role and responsibilities of a subject, of the dreamer, of the scriptwriter, producer, and director of the movie? The human character convinces itself that it has almost complete freedom and therefore responsibility for its actions. It then finds itself, nevertheless, doing what it is intended to do in the perfect unfolding in the infinite expression of consciousness. But not recognizing this fact, the fact that everything is unfolding in a perfect display of presence outpouring, the human character protests. I didn't want that to happen. I didn't want to do that particular thing. I wanted something else to happen. Why can't I be a better person? So much energy is spent berating oneself for not living up to what one has become convinced he or she should be. So much guilt and an equal amount of energy expended trying to avoid that guilt by faulting someone else for not living up to the same expectations. It's ridiculous. The human organism thinks it is God and takes on the responsibilities of God, but has only the capacity of a created object. No wonder so many feel so bad about themselves so much of the time. How can they possibly measure up It's an impossible setup. And the suffering that the human object brings upon himself by taking on the role of a subject is in fact imaginary and unnecessary. It's unnecessary suffering. It's a massive case of confused and mistaken identity. The whole idea that there is such a thing as an individual, a self, a person, a human being, is simply a small, innocent mistake. There seems to be all this activity, thoughts, emotions, what writers call a stream of consciousness, which gives the illusion of a certain continuity. It is this apparent continuity of brain activity which makes you think of yourself as a self, but in fact, it doesn't exist. There's no thing there. What you think you are, a human being, is actually much less a dream character, an apparent body-mind organism functioning as a pass-through mechanism for the expression of consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
But who you really are is actually immeasurably more. All of this, including the life of the body-mind thing you think you are, is in truth unfolding perfectly, flawlessly, in the pure, choiceless awareness that you truly are. Awakening to this understanding is total grace, a complete gift. That it should happen at all, that any should awaken in the dream is a great mystery. The ego does not put itself aside without a struggle. We don't give up our lives easily. The truth is that left to our own devices, we would not give it up at all. What does it take to realize that the self that we have constructed is not real, does not exist? Sometimes it takes some pretty drastic measures, intense physical and mental distress, often to the edge of bodily death. That seems to frequently be a factor in accounts of awakening. But after awakening, there's a clarity that whatever it takes to break your heart open and wake you up, that is grace. Meanwhile, here you are, and it all is what it is. It unfolds perfectly. Throughout Ramana Maharshi's teaching is the theme that since the ego has no real existence of its own, it disappears or vanishes when the light of inquiry is brought to it. What you are left with when the falseness of the ego vanishes is truth. It's that simple. That's what waking up is. Quote, reality is simply loss of the ego, close quote. Disidentifying from the belief in oneself as a separate entity, losing one's ego, is hindered by the fact that people love the concept of free will. They will go to the block for it, believing life isn't worth living without it. But a consistent examination of free will reveals that it's only an idea, not your actual experience at any point. Causation figuring out why things happen the way they do is so complex that there is no way you can truly say free will has any meaningful input into any of the actions performed by the body mind you call yourself. Can you actually find one action which you can be sure, which you can prove was yours alone, or yours significantly, or even yours at all, and not the result of the interconnected net of influences of genetics, environment, training, culture, conditioning, historical accident, chance encounter, and so on? Ultimately, you cannot. Once this is understood, it is possible to see that what we think of as individuals are not subjects, not points of origin, but are objects, instruments through which consciousness works or flows. The concept of responsibility then pretty much relaxes and goes away. You are no more responsible for what occurs through the body mind you call yourself than the flute is responsible for the music played on it by the musician. And then there is the realization that this is also true of any other mind body. And so, of course, responsibilities spawn guilt, sin, shame, pride, arrogance, malice, all pretty much go out the window. You don't do things, nor does anyone else. Events happen, and they happen through the body-mind organisms as instruments, including the one you call yourself. It's an impossible weight for the object, the instrument, to try and take on the load of being the determiner, the subject, the one responsible, the one apparently screwing up and making a mess of things. It's essentially crazy making, as you can see by looking at the world. The only reasonably happy and sane people are the ones who embrace some version of acceptance of what is as the unfolding in consciousness, even if it takes the form of a somewhat simple faith such as let go and let God. The folks who are convinced that they can and have to determine things for themselves with all the attendant implications of personal responsibility are the ones who dig themselves in pretty deep. And yes, of course, taking personal responsibility is a more mature understanding than faulting and blaming everyone else. And so it is taught as a useful strategy for societies and for individuals in the dream. But ultimately, this too is seen to be as empty a concept as the concept of the individual on which it's based. The core, central, irreducible teaching said in some form by any teacher worth listening to is also contained in the one line from Hebrew scripture: be still and know I am God. There is nothing really to teach. If one would only be still, all that can be known is here. All else is dream stuff. All else is just making noise. All else is bondage. The idea of non-doership is essentially a fairly simple one. but nevertheless, it's difficult to talk or even think about it clearly at first because our language and concepts aren't set up for it. The Chinese have a phrase, we, woo, we. We is action. Woo is the negative. So woo, we is non-action. That gives us the basic duality, action or not action. But then there's this experienced alternative of we, woo, we, which is, quote, action, which is not action. Neither sitting doing nothing nor running around trying to accomplish things, but the experience of the necessary action happening. The key is in the idea of who is doing the acting. Nobody is. The acting is happening without a doer. This is what our language and concepts have trouble with. This is what the mind has trouble grasping. But wait, whose mind? What mind? The you that you think has a mind is an illusion, an idea that we were all taught to believe in, but which turns out to have no basis and no reality. This becomes clear. When you look at it, there really isn't any mind. What is the mind? There's no such separate thing. What there is, what we all experience, is an apparently more or less continuous stream of thoughts. This is what we then called mind, believing that this stream of thoughts is generated from inside our skulls. This is what we have been taught to believe since day one. But look at your own experience. Actually, you know that your thoughts come from elsewhere. Sometimes we even say, I wonder where that thought came from. Where they all come from. Consciousness, source. The human body, mind instruments are not points of origin. They are not points of origin. They don't originate anything. They are not transmitters. They are only relay stations, pass-through mechanisms for consciousness, which is where the teaching, you are not the doer, comes from. You cannot be a doer of anything. Things happen through the body-mind organism you think of as you. If you need to, you can think about things as being done by consciousness through the instruments of the body-mind organisms. But ultimately, that too is a projection of consciousness as a being, an entity like God who does things. Often it is said that consciousness or presence or love or the beloved, doing or thinking or experiencing, it can be comforting or inspiring to talk this way. But this is a poetic use of language and concepts. Ultimately, the idea of any doer is let go of. There is no doer and no thing done, only the doing. No experiencer and no experience, only the experiencing. And that is what consciousness is. Consciousness doesn't do anything. It is everything. It is all thoroughly and completely impersonal, both in terms of there being any person here as a me, and in terms of there being any divine person. This is the essence of non-duality. There is only all that is. There is what I am. There is nothing other than this, either a me here or a God somewhere else. All is I. Here, listen to wee wee woe. Quote, all said and done, everything is I, and I am no thing. All phenomena are objective manifestations. What I am objectively is the totality of phenomenal manifestation. What I am subjectively is that all phenomena are. Nothing personal about it or at any stage. The personal notation is not inherent, and it is the whole trouble. So this is very much in keeping with the whole major point that Carse makes over and over again. There's nobody home. That is his driving a theme throughout the book in every possible way he looks at it. We're all laboring under a mistaken belief that we are subjects blessed with free will, volition, and choice. And that binds us. That's the bondage. And so he's constantly trying to point us back to the reality which he just emphasized. There's no doer, only doing. And that you have to kind of get out of the way and accept what is, and
so it's all just happening.
But happening perfectly, flawlessly, as an outpouring of perfect, brilliant stillness. And I just looked down, the subtitle is Beyond the Individual Self. So this whole book is an encouragement to see through the illusion of your identification with an illusory self.
What does he have to say about memory? I mean, consciousness is memory.
Ugo, I think he would say, whose memory are you talking about? The memory of an imagined dream character?
I can only be aware of my consciousness. I can interpret your consciousness. I can get subjective, but I can only be aware of the consciousness that has been a product of the experiences that I've accumulated in memory. And that to me, my understanding is that source, that memory bank, that consciousness is the thing that we use to create the ego. And it's flawed. The flaw is in developing, to my understanding, developing an understanding that this memory is the thing where thought generates. And thought is the thinking, is the thing that gets us into a lot of trouble, because mostly it's conditioned. And from a very early age, from as soon as you can remember, I guess, you're being conditioned. So I understand his stillness. I can hook that up to the stillness is not allowing thought to be your driving motive, to be your driving force, not necessarily to process what's happening through the I, through the me, because that's going to be a distortion. So if you can sort of pause thought and be still, you can see reality, or you can see things the way they are. And things the way they are, they're perfect because they can't be any other way. I don't know what the hell I'm talking. But it really gets me, because to me, it really, I can really get it. I get an understanding that it's the way I've been taught to think that has created all of my psychological problems.
There's this thing he says in this, that there's a lot of letting go in this, and he has it in italics,
Mhm.
Yep.
which I think is really kind of brilliant. So, I
Mhm.
mean, I don't know, Ugo, if you want to sort of let all of that go, but
Well, I don't think
it's kind of what Paul said. It's like, who's doing the thinking? You know, it's like,
well, I don't think I can let go of it. I don't think I can let go of memory. I think I cannot be controlled. Maybe I can see it happening and use awareness to know that this is coming from memory. But you can't get rid of memory.
but it's like what you're saying. You're saying it so perfectly. You're saying, I don't think that I can let go of it. I don't think, listen to what you're saying. I don't think that I can let go of it.
Right.
So that's what you're thinking.
Yeah.
You're
Well,
thinking, I don't think that I can
I-
let go.
well, unfortunately, I have to use words.
No, but listen to the
Yeah.
words that you're saying. It's really it's very interesting and insightful. I don't
Okay, then
think
let's leave the word thinking out. I can't let go of memory. How do you let go of memory?
right, but
How can you unmemory something that you have in memory? How can you forget something? I mean, you
basically
forgetting is not
what you
conscious.
do, there's one way to do it is basically just be here now, right?
Well,
If
what's
you're
that?
just be here now, right? If
Well,
you're just if
be
you
here now, I have to pause memory.
no
Right.
but there's no so there's no memory when you're just in the present moment, right?
Absolutely. That's
And
what I'm saying.
there's no ego in the present moment.
Absolutely. That's what I'm saying.
But again, Ugo, he's just saying there's a lot of letting go in this. And I guess the question is, are you willing to let go? You're just explicitly saying that I can't let go of this, you know, and it's a thought that you're holding, but it doesn't have to be a thought that you continue to hold.
I'm up at a point where I believe I can pause. I can pause memory. I can pause a lot of things, but letting go, I can let go while I'm pausing. But that doesn't mean that there's an act, there's something that I've not experienced that being able to let go of something, it's gone. You let go of something, you're not holding it in the moment, but it's part of your memory banks.
Memory is time, is psychological time.
Okay.
Memory is psychological past, or taking that past and projecting it into the future. It's all psychological time. What is interesting here, what he was pointing to, is when he says, you are not the doer. In order to fully grasp that in the moment, there is no time. In the moment, there is happening in the moment. We are conditioned to believe that we have to bring this past or the future into every present moment. So we're not aware that things are happening. It's just happening. And that's what I think was so important here in the pointing to the fact that we are not the doer. if, Ugo, as you say, we pause memory, and how do we do it? By obviously being now and not bringing psychological time into it, which we
Right.
can clearly be aware of.
Yeah.
We know when we're dwelling in the past or projecting into the future. If we don't do that, then consciousness, as he said, is working through us. Then we are just instruments if we don't block the way. We block the way by bringing up this me that we believe is real. And that me is just memory and psychological time. If we take that out of the equation, if we take that out, then we are, how did he say, a relay station? I think that's fabulous. And so things are happening. And there isn't an experiencer, which is the me, or an experience, which is or an experience which is part of the experiencer. There is experiencing, which can only be in the moment. And then you don't have to worry about memory. You don't even have to bring it in. Yes, we're conditioned, but we're able to have an awareness of the conditioning. And that awareness can only be now. As soon as we introduce psychological time, we are out of the now, we are in the me, and we see ourselves as the doer, the creator. And he's saying, let go of that and really fully allow the happening to happen without your identifying with the memories, with psychological time, with your conditioning, and with this picture of you as an independent, separate me. That's what I heard him say. Did you?
What strikes me is that memory is just something happening like anything else. It's just a thought. And there's no, right. So there's no reason to think it's any more valid than any other sort of mental thing that's happening to you.
That's right.
And so I also prefer let it be rather than let it go, because let it go is an active process, meaning someone is trying to do something, it seems.
That's true.
Whereas if you just let it be, see it, observe it, let it go, because it's going to be replaced in 5 seconds by something else.
That's right.
So
that's right. No, see, this is where we get stuck too, because what can I do about this particular thought?
right.
I can't do anything about the particular thought because I am the particular thought, right? Because I'm identifying myself as a me, which is thought.
Yeah.
So what, I can't do anything. However, we have the beautiful gift of observation, of choiceless awareness. And then there's a seeing. And the seeing, as Krishnamurti always says, is the doing. And in that doing is the letting go, or the letting it be, or the accepting the what is. We can't do anything as long as we're identified as a me, because the thought that we're trying to change is me.
Yeah, I mean, memory, the only power it has is what we give to it. Memory is it's just another thought.
Yeah, but thoughts only arise from memory. There is no thought that does not come from memory. my
Yes.
understanding.
I agree, but what, why is that?
So what?
So when you have a thought, I think for me, it's the realization that that's like you're saying, I'm back into time. I'm referring to something that happened, or I'm trying to figure out what's going to happen.
Right.
And that can only be created by the ego, by the me.
Yeah.
So if I understand that, then whatever the me does is an illusion, or it's something that I make up. And I'm making up something. That's like trying to make cake without dough.
Yeah. He said we're dreamed characters. That we've heard that many times.
We have images of what we think we are.
So in the dream, it's just unfolding. It's just happening. There's no sense of doing.
I mean, just for a moment, let's step back and acknowledge the radical nature of what is being said.
Mhm.
I mean, I am thoroughly immersed in the belief that I am a separate individual and I choose my actions, and my life is the product of the sum of my personal choices. That is the soup we're all swimming in.
Right.
That is just my taken for granted, everyday, internal, self-structured reality.
That's right.
That's right. And then along, sorry, Chip.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Will. Go ahead, Bill.
And that somehow memory is accurate in the first place.
Okay.
It's not accurate.
That's
So why do we go down this rabbit hole of
That's
believing our memories and our thoughts?
right.
They're
Yeah.
not reality.
That's right.
But I just wanted to just finish the articulation of what he's saying. And then this teaching comes along and says, that is completely not the way things are. Consciousness is outpouring, and you are not an originator of anything. You are not an originator of your thoughts or your actions. Even though you think you are, that's an illusion. You are a transmitter. No, you are a relay station, a bypass mechanism through which consciousness is expressing itself. And as consciousness blows through this particular body-mind structure, it looks like whatever my life looks like. Right? That's what he's saying. Consciousness is your body-mind mechanism is for the expression of consciousness. You're not creating anything.
Right. That's what he said.
And so relax, stop holding yourself so accountable, stop finding yourself so judgmentally at fault. It is what it is. I just think it's important, it's not for nothing. It's not a small idea.
We don't even know what our next thought is going to be.
True.
And so what about that? I think that's so interesting. We don't know what our next thought is going to be. And if we were in control of this vehicle, why would we ever think an unhappy thought? Why? We're not.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's the scary part. See, that's the part that we're all really frightened of. Not being in control, not being in control.
That affirms there is no doer.
I'm not sure.
The fact that you can't control your thoughts.
Right.
There is no doer.
That's
The
right.
doer would have to have control. But
Of course,
to me,
of course.
the recognition or the seeing that, you know, you don't control your thoughts
Right.
is another reason for saying, well, when I think I'm controlling it, that's the me, and I'm thinking.
That's
And
right.
when you're thinking, you got the me working, and when you got the me working, psychologically, that is,
Yes, of course. It's all psychological.
you're in the suffering basket.
Absolutely. That's right. That's what's causing the suffering.
He's got a very unique way of saying it.
Mm. Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
What does Krishnamurti say about memory?
All thoughts arise. Memory, from my understanding, is that your consciousness, that's what it is. You have an experience and you have an instrument that's able to remember that or experience, or record the experience. It's called memory.
Yeah.
And from that body of basket of memory experiences, thoughts arise. And that's what we call thinking. So the problem with it is that as we're having the experiences, we're having the experience through conditioned listening, through conditioned eyes, through conditioned hearing. So the recording is flawed. It's not that accurate, or it's tinged by whatever the prejudice that you see in your senses. But as far as I know, Krishnamurti says all thoughts come from memory.
Does he say to pay attention to them or give them any gravity?
No.
Well, no, because
The problem is that so we need memory. Otherwise, how am I going to know how to drive my car? Or how am I going to know which house to go to? So I need functional memory. But what we're talking about here is the psychological memory, which is all the feelings and the interpretations and the distortions that go along with factual experiences. So you're going to remember, you might remember the first time you actually learned how to drive a car. But if that experience of driving the car was a hurtful one, then you're going to, the brain registers that, it's in the brain cells themselves, and then you will recall it as an unhappy event that happened to you. If it was pleasant, then you will recall it as a happy event that happened to you. But that you is made up of all those thoughts and experiences. And that's the psychological time we're talking about. The past, bringing it into the present or projecting it into the future. So on the one hand, you need functional memory, but it's the psychological memories that cause us the pain and the suffering, and that which creates the me.
Yeah.
The functional memory does not create a me. What we attach to it creates the me.
So it's Thursday night
Mhm.
at 7:48,
Yeah.
and we're all here.
Mhm.
And we're here because we decided to be here, and we made plans to free up this
Think.
time. Right? How do we understand that we're all here doing this particular activity? So if there's no doer and no free will,
Right.
then this meeting is the result. This meeting is an expression of consciousness passing through these body minds presently in communication with one another.
Right. And we couldn't be anyplace else. I mean, we could have done something else. We could have gone to a, I don't know, movie or watched TV, the news or the whatever. But there's really no choice.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, Paul. I love that chapter. It says, finally, there is no doer and no thing done, only the doing.
That's right.
So that's very interesting. There's no doer and
Right.
there's no thing done, only the doing. No experiencer and no experience,
Right.
only the experiencing.
Yes.
And so I think it's a little it's just that idea that when you're saying we were all meeting here, you're saying it from the perspective of this individualization, right? Like,
That's
you know, Paul, Evie, Bill,
right.
Ugo, Walter, whatever my name is. So, you know, but I think what he's talking about is that shift, which is out of that sense of separate self. And so if it's out of the sense of there is no separate self, and so he's saying it's only consciousness. So
Right.
he's saying, and that is what consciousness is. Consciousness doesn't do anything. It is everything.
Right.
So I think the reason we're not doing anything is because we are everything. And I think, right, that's what it is. It's not that there aren't things that are being done, because he says, there is no doer, no thing done, only the doing. So there is a doing process that
Yes,
he's
it's a
acknowledging.
movement.
There is no experiencer and no experience,
Right.
only the experiencing.
That's
So
right.
I think what it is that shift from the notion of a separate self to no separate self, to not two, you know, the
That's right.
Advaita Vedanta thing, you know.
That's
Mhm.
right. That's right. And isn't it interesting? When you read that sentence and when Paul read it before, there was, for a moment, a total an openness, a freedom without any sense of me.
Exactly. And I think, Ugo, that's the thing. I think if you're just, it's like a little construct, you know, if like you were making a little house of cards, let's say you had a deck of cards and you had, you know, you made it just a little something where you propped up the sides and that kind of stuff. That's a construct. And then you can make a little house of cards, right? And I think if you really look at your thinking, you'll see that that's what you've done when you're saying, I can't do this, or I can't think this, or I can't. What you're doing is you're making a little construct, and you're saying that construct is the way reality is, not recognizing that you're the one that's supporting that construct. Do you know what I mean? In other words, you're saying,
No,
I can't imagine not living without memory. You know, that's a construct that you're holding, that consciousness is holding within this apparent Ugo. But it's just the instant you let go of that, like Evelyn just said, we can all just experience this being, this experiencing right now without a notion of a separate self, you know. It's just basically I here. I in the form of whatever decides to speak, you know, whether it's the Ugo speak, the Bill speak, the Paul speak, the
Right.
Evelyn speak, the Chip speak, the Lisa speak. So it's just that beautiful freedom of just letting it go, letting it all go. Or as Bill said, which I thought you must be a Beatles fan, let it be, which is kind of, that's kind of an interesting point that you're making,
Yes.
because the let it go
Right.
is kind of it's
Yes.
Yeah.
action, or where the let it be is just
Implies,
basically
yeah.
exactly. So, and
Yeah.
that's available to us, Ugo, right now.
Yes.
I had a thought about when you were speaking about the the business of non-doership and so on and so forth, and then the getting into the other parts of the consciousness. It seems to me that I think that in the process of doing something, there's a psychological aspect of thinking, but there's also a mechanical aspect of thinking.
Right.
And I think that, and when you're doing something, there is a moment there or a time there when you're with the mechanical part of your consciousness. There is no me doing it. It's memory of mechanical stuff where there is no hurt or feelings. I mean, you know, you can't have a feeling about the plane that you're using. It's either sharp or it's dull. If it's
Right.
dull, you sharpen it. If it's sharp, you keep using it. So there's, I mean, as we were talking, it just dawned on me that a great deal of today I was doing something in the kitchen, and it was assembling a board with some, and there was no thought involved. I mean, as far as this, that, and the other thing, I didn't get angry that something didn't fit or that I cut my finger or anything. It was just doing the mechanical aspect of it. So I think maybe that kind of helps me to understand
Good.
this
Yes.
business of no-doership.
Right. Right.
Right. And the thing is when is the me present?
Mm.
When you verbalize, the minute you start verbalizing,
Well, think about it for a second. When is the
That's
me
it.
when is the me present?
The moment you identify with this body mind, with the conditioning, the moment you identify with your prejudices, your beliefs, your opinions, your conclusions, your judgments, the moment those appear and you identify yourself with them, that is the me.
I would also say the moment you label something as well.
The moment you label something.
the minute thought enters into the picture.
Wait, you're almost, Ugo, you almost said what I thought. You said the minute, can you say what you said again, Ugo? Did we lose him?
No,
No,
Ugo.
he's frozen.
Oh, oh.
That's really classic. That's gotta be, that's like such. Come back.
Oh,
Oh,
how do we unfreeze him?
Ugo, now he's back.
There
You're
you
back,
Very good.
Ugo, you're back.
What happened?
We
Yeah.
lost you for,
Froze.
Oh, I've been flipping in and out. Something is telling me that my internet connection is weak, but
That could
I don't
be.
know.
Ugo, do you remember what you said in answer to that? When is the me present?
Yeah, the me is present when you think, when thought is involved.
Yes.
right,
Yeah, it's exactly. The me is only present
It's only
when you,
thought.
exactly.
absolutely.
The me is only present when you express have the thought of me.
When
Whether
you're
it-
using
whether
the
it be-
ego's
whether-
vehicle, which is thought.
Well, yeah, but it's whether it's what you said, Evelyn, or what you said, Bill. It still centers around the thought of a me.
Of course.
So
it's
if there's
movement
no
of
thought of a me, like Ugo, you're talking about your mechanical thinking. It's true. It could be a mechanical thinking, but it doesn't have to be. It's just the moment that thought of me is being expressed through consciousness, that's when me exists. When me is not being expressed through consciousness, there is no me.
No, that's
The
right.
mind is silent, right?
The mind doesn't have to be silent. It's just there's no thought of a me, there's no me present.
Yeah, well, with no thought is a silent, what is a silent mind? A silent mind is a mind where there is no movement of thought.
Yes, if there's no
without identification with that thought.
Right. If there's no thought, there's no me. That's one part. But also there can be thought without a me.
Yes.
That's right.
That's right.
Absolutely.
And then that me will not be present.
That's
Like
right.
what
That's-
Ugo, you're assigning it to the notion of a mechanical activity,
Yeah.
but it doesn't have to necessarily be a mechanical activity. But anyway, I just think
Yeah,
it's
well,
I
yeah.
think this is such great stuff. This guy's writing. Thanks, Paul, for
It
reading it.
is, it is, it is
Good,
great
good.
stuff.
We just can't make ourselves vanish though. That's the whole thing. We had all these discussions, but we still are here, it'd be nice if we could make something vanish, like the eye disappear, but I'm just jousting. I gotta make light of stuff.
Yeah.
I
Well,
I
we
feel like
don't-
it's right here.
Yeah.
Of course it is.
It's right here.
Of course it is.
Sorry, Paul. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, it's okay. Well, look, we don't want anybody vanishing because we want to meet next time.
Absolutely.
So until next time,
Yes.
everybody stay safe and well, and we look forward to the next meeting.
Thank you.
Good.
Yes, thank you.
Thank
too.
you.
Take
Thank
care.
you so
guys.
much.
Great
Buonasera.
discussion.
Buonasera a tutti.
Buonasera.
Buonasera.